The United States Supreme Court delivered a big decision this morning, ensuring access to the most common form of medication, abortion. It's a pill called mifepristone. Mifepristone has a long track record with the FDA. It was first approved for medication abortions in 2000, and in 2021, they made it available through the mail. But then in 2022, Roe v. Wade was overturned. And then in 2023, a federal judge in Texas ruled in favor of anti-abortion doctors who challenged the FDA approval to begin with. Then months later, a federal appeals court ruled it would limit the use of mifepristone and stop mail orders. But as of today, the big takeaway here, none of that happens. And Kent, to a lot of people, the most surprising thing about today's decision from the Supreme Court is it wasn't even close.
Yeah, that's right. It was unanimous. In fact, the majority opinion was written by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and the concurring opinion was written by another conservative justice, Clarence Thomas. And even if they didn't see it coming, legal experts say there is a good legal reason for that unity. From the outside, today's Supreme Court ruling leaving widespread access to mifepristone in place was unexpected in one major way.
You know, I think it was surprising that it was 9-0. To be unanimous, I think was probably pretty surprising to many people.
University of Minnesota professor Tim Johnson says it's less surprising after looking closer at the opinion and seeing it all came down to standing, or in the words of the late Justice Antonin Scalia, what's it to you?
There was a group of doctors who said, we are morally opposed to abortion. We are morally opposed to the idea of maybe someday in the future having to treat someone who has a complication because they might have taken mifepristone. And when you add all those mights and all those maybes together, for one, there's no direct harm on those doctors. And for two, those doctors are not harmed just because another person has ingested a drug that they have a moral issue with.
The justices also pointed out that the doctors who oppose the pill haven't prescribed it because they don't have to.
If you don't want to morally treat someone who has taken this pill, there's actually a clause in federal law, and Justice Kavanaugh points it out, that says based on your conscience, you don't have to treat that person. You find someone else to do it.
After the court overturned Roe v. Wade, use of the drug has surged, with mifepristone accounting for nearly 2/3 of abortions last year.
Lack of prenatal care increases your risk.
But OBGYN Leslie Jager says that's also because after about 10 weeks of pregnancy, options nationwide have become more limited.
Many of us have described OB care now as becoming the new trauma specialty, because in some of these states you can't deal with the complications until it's gotten to the point where the mother's life is in danger.
Meanwhile, some are worried that the fight over medication abortion isn't over. In a statement, Minnesota Senator Tina Smith said the decision today is a reprieve, not a vindication, adding, indeed, other cases attacking the availability of mifepristone are already percolating in lower courts. She's referring to cases brought by Missouri, Kansas, and Idaho, which have all sued in response to their state abortion bans. Johnson, though, doesn't think those cases will go far.
The court might have to take it up again, but given that this was unanimous, and in fact, given the analysis that Justice Thomas had in his concurring opinion, yeah, I think the court could take it again, but it would rule in the exact same way as it did in this case.
But either way, Jager says the impact will still be felt.
It's a whiplash. One day you can do one thing, one day you can do another thing. So, trying to advise patients has become very difficult. Patients are upset that somebody is telling them one thing in their news feed, and then their physician is telling them something else about the safety of medications, and so they get confused, which is, I think, the purpose sometimes of these lawsuits. It's not necessarily to win, it's to confuse patients and prevent them from accessing care.
And in light of all of this, the court still has another abortion case to rule on before going home for the summer. The court will decide whether a federal law requiring hospitals to provide stabilizing treatment to patients who present to their emergency rooms preempts state abortion laws and requires them to provide emergency abortions if it's necessary to stabilize a mother. And that decision could come as soon as tomorrow. Jana.
Yeah, there were some that thought those decisions would come together, but this one's coming separately.
Yeah, Tim said he thought maybe they would both come together. He's not sure what, if anything, that means based on where these decisions are. At this point, he said it's best not to try to guess what this court is going to decide.
Yeah, tough